All right, time for another Chevrolet Sportsnet Central update. We're just a little over a month away from the Celtics season opener against the 76ers at TD Garden. Boston is entering the season as title favorites, but team owner Wyc Grousbeck says, I want to pump the brakes. Carrying the load is presented by the Chevy Silverado. Here is what he said to the Globe's Adam Himmelsbach. I really loved being part of the Celtics throughout that run. It was thrilling. The other side of the coin is I think that we've now been overrated. I think that performance was a bit overrated in the public mind or my own mind because I'm the one saying it. We're not a hands-down team to repeat as Eastern Conference champions. I think we're a quality team. He went on to say that he's also concerned about the start of the season. Last year was a freer, easier year. There were low expectations. We had changes in the front office and coaching staff, a new roster. Now there are huge expectations, and we're favored to win, and we crumbled last fall with less pressure. So I am apprehensive. I'm definitely uncertain about how we start. All right, back out here at John Tomase and Marc the Beetle Bertrand. Is this just Wyc playing like, I'm going to play a little reverse psychology here. You know, I'm like a parent who's telling the kid, no, if you want to go out and have cocktails with your friends, mom and dad will just pick you up, even if you're puking in the back of the car. But really what he's saying is don't go do that because we'd prefer that you didn't. Yeah, I mean, so he's definitely tempering expectations, clearly, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I actually read those comments and thought they sounded kind of genuine. And he said what a lot of us are thinking, like, you were a great team for half a season last year, a little over half with the playoffs. But you were terrible at the beginning. And when you use a word like crumble, we crumbled at the beginning. Like, that's kind of that's a harsher word than I'm just managing expectations. I mean, he's not wrong, Beetle, but it's odd to hear an owner come out and say, yeah, we were really good when we got to the finals last year. We put a lot of money into this team, but man, I'm not 100% sure we really got what it takes to win. Well, first of all, good for Wyc for being an owner in this town who's still willing to do the occasional interview. Amazing. Yeah, because the three other ownerships, are hard to find, and Wyc is not. So when I read these comments, I thought these are not for his fan base. He is not placating to his very happy fan base that the Celtics enjoy. That's not what this is about. It couldn't be. It has to be for the guys within the organization, whether that is players only or players and coaches, players front office. It's got to be sort of the organizational message that he is sending, which is last year was good, but if you want to get back into that position, it's not going to take just showing up. And I think, we've talked about some of the players on this team in the past being, pretty excited about some of their accomplishments that we looked at and said, you didn't win anything yet. So I think that's probably what it is. It's sending an organizational message from the top down that to get back to where we were a year ago, there's a lot of other teams that are now in the mix, and you're going to have to work twice as hard. It also sort of makes me wonder, what are they seeing behind the scenes? Like, what are they hearing from guys? What kind of airs are about them that Wyc Grousbeck, and I'd have to imagine that, I mean, he's the owner. He doesn't have to run it by Brad Stevens or anybody else. But I don't think you just come out and say this stuff if there isn't reason to say it. Like, if your team was so devastated by the way things ended last year, and maybe even heard a Jason Tatum go, we were a bucket or two away from not even advancing to the finals. Like, we can't do it. For you to say this, Tomase, it kind of makes me think there's something going on behind the scenes that makes him feel like, I got to remind you guys just how close we were to not being there. Yeah, I don't actually see it that way. I see it more as I've seen inconsistency out of this group too many times. So, yes, I'm happy to see that, Marcus Smart rewatches Game 4. 3 times a day or whatever. I'm happy that Jaylen Brown is doing stuff at the bottom of the pool and Jason Tatum's working hard and all that. But I also know that this group can take its eyes off the prize. I've seen that too many times. So I think it might be more of that bigger picture thing than anything he's seen recently. Or he's just, it is to what you're saying, to add on to that, a little bit scarred from some of those years where there were high expectations and they didn't quite reach them, right? And maybe that was too many years ago for it to have been Tatum's fault or Brown's fault or Marcus Smart's fault, but he as an owner has lived through some years here in recent years, not last year, but prior to that, where there were high expectations and they didn't really pan out exactly the way they wanted them to. So these quotes are getting a ton of play, but the ones that actually got my eye even more were the ones about Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens. Here's what he talked about the difference between the two. I think Brad is very consultative. He loves talking and hashing things out. Danny's more set in his ways and has his opinions. I'm sure Brad's relationship with other general managers are open and communicative. I think Danny is more like the former pro athlete. He's funny as hell, but kind of more seat of the pants. I don't want want to say it sounds like Wyc's happy that Brad Stevens is in that spot instead of Danny Ainge, but boy, does it feel more and more like it wasn't like I'm just ready to go to Utah, so why don't you take the reins, and more like, why don't you go to Utah and we'll hand the reins to Brad Stevens.
I got to say real quick, I hated that thing about Ainge. I'm like, this guy built what you have. Like, yes, Brad Stevens added some pieces, was a good coach. Danny Ainge built this to make it sound like a seat of his pants. It took a lot of work to get them to where they are. I think Danny deserves a little better than that.
I really don't even think he's putting him down. I think he's just being honest. Like, talking about the personalities of those two guys. I bet he is happy, though, that Brad is the guy now, given that, to go back to a conversation we were having about football coaches, Brad's younger, probably has more energy for the job right now, and is off to a really good start.
Yeah.
He has not drafted a Tatum or Brown or someone like that, but he's off to a good start as GM. I think his first year plus on the job has been really good.
Yeah, and it also says something that he has opened the purse strings and said to Brad Stevens, hey, if you need something, you want something, we're going to give you the money for it, because they haven't always done that.